The notification sound stopped me mid-sip. My sister had accidentally sent me a screenshot of our family's group chat, a group I never knew existed. There they were, my parents, my 3 siblings, their spouses, even my teenage niece, all laughing about something my father had shared. 63 unread messages in a conversation I wasn't part of. My coffee turned bitter in my mouth as I scrolled through names and realized mine was the only one missing. When I asked my sister about it later, her excuse was paper thin. "We didn't think you'd be interested, Maggie. You're always so busy." That night, I stared at my phone for hours before making a decision that would change everything. If I wasn't welcome in their digital world, I'd create one of my own. Family has always been complicated for me. I'm the middle child of 4, sandwiched between my older brother David and sister Rachel, with our baby brother Michael trailing behind. Growing up, our house was chaotic, but loving. Mom was the peacekeeper, Dad the storyteller. We fought like wildcats, but defended each other fiercely against outsiders. I was always the odd one out, though. While my siblings followed traditional paths, college, marriage, children, I chased a different dream. After journalism school, I took a job that sent me around the world covering stories in places they couldn't pronounce. For 15 years, I'd been the family nomad, the one who missed Christmas gatherings because I was reporting from refugee camps, the one who sent exotic gifts but couldn't attend birthday parties. When Dad had his first heart attack 5 years ago, I came home. Not just for a visit, I actually moved back to Cedar Falls, took a job at the local paper, and bought a small house just 20 minutes from my parents. I thought I was finally doing the right thing, putting down roots, becoming part of the fabric of family life again. I started showing up for Sunday dinners. I volunteered to babysit my nieces and nephews. I helped Mom with her garden and sat with Dad watching baseball games I didn't care about. But something had shifted during those years away. My siblings had formed their own tight unit without me. They had inside jokes I didn't understand, traditions I wasn't part of. I'd try to contribute to conversations only to have them exchange glances that clearly said, "She doesn't get it." Still, I persisted. I brought homemade bread to gatherings. I remembered birthdays with thoughtful gifts. I listened patiently to Rachel's endless stories about her perfect children and David's detailed accounts of his home renovations. I asked Michael questions about his IT job that I didn't understand but genuinely wanted to learn about. I was trying, really trying, to weave myself back into the family tapestry. When smartphones became ubiquitous, our family communication changed like everyone else's. We started texting more than calling. Mom figured out how to use emojis and overuse them, enthusiastically. Dad would send us all the same joke one by one. It wasn't perfect, but it worked, or so I thought. The discovery of the secret family group chat hit me harder than I expected. I found myself scrolling back through months of conversations they'd had without me. Birthday planning, holiday coordination, daily check-ins, and funny memes. The little moments of connection that form the invisible threads of belonging. What hurt most was seeing how they'd actively worked around my absence. Don't tell Maggie yet about the surprise party for Mom. Let's discuss the beach house rental after Maggie leaves tonight. There was even a brief conversation about whether I would ruin the vibe at Michael's anniversary party because I'd be there alone while everyone else had partners. The next Sunday dinner was excruciating. I sat at the table while everyone's phones buzzed simultaneously with messages. They'd glance down, smile or laugh, then continue eating as if nothing had happened. I wondered if they were talking about me right then, in plain sight. "Something funny?" I asked when it happened for the 3rd time. Rachel looked up. "Oh, just Dad being Dad." "In the group chat?" I said, my voice deliberately casual. The table went quiet. Mom looked down at her plate. Michael suddenly became very interested in cutting his chicken into precise pieces. Rachel recovered first. "It's nothing important, just silly stuff." "Then why am I not in it?" The question hung in the air like smoke. David cleared his throat. "Honestly, Mags, you've never seemed that interested in day-to-day family stuff. We figured you had more important things to worry about." "I moved back here 5 years ago, specifically for family," I said. "Yeah, but you're still, you know," Michael waved his fork vaguely, "you." Those 2 syllables contained so much. You, different. difficult, not quite fitting, too opinionated, too independent, too much, and somehow never enough. Mom tried to smooth things over. "We can add you to the chat, sweetie. It's not a big deal." But it was a big deal. Adding me as an afterthought wouldn't change the fact that they deliberately created a space that excluded me for years. "Don't bother," I said, forcing a smile. I probably wouldn't keep up with it anyway. The conversation shifted to my niece's soccer tournament, but something had broken open that couldn't be easily fixed. I left early that night, claiming a headache. No one tried very hard to make me stay. At home, I poured a glass of wine and sat on my porch swing, watching fireflies appear in the summer twilight. My phone remained silent beside me. No apologetic texts, no invitations to join the chat, nothing. That's when the idea first came to me. Not out of spite, exactly, more like self-preservation. I started small. First, I texted my friend Elena, who I'd met at a writing workshop after moving back to town. "Want to get coffee tomorrow?" Then I messaged Sam from the paper and Javier from my yoga class. By midnight, I had the beginnings of a plan. I didn't create a traditional group chat. Instead, I started a private social media group called Found Family. I invited Elena, Sam, Javier, and a few other friends, who, like me, didn't quite fit into neat boxes. My neighbor Ruth, a widow in her 70s who made incredible sourdough bread. Marcus from the bookstore, who always recommended the perfect novels. Taryn, who'd recently moved to town and didn't know anyone. "This is a space for people who understand that family isn't just about blood," I wrote in the group description. "It's about showing up, listening, caring. No obligation, no judgment, just connection." I didn't mention my biological family or their exclusive chat. This wasn't about them. It was about creating something new for myself. The group took off immediately. Elena posted about a volunteer opportunity at the animal shelter. Javier shared his grandmother's empanada recipe. Ruth asked for help setting up her new printer, and 3 people offered to stop by. We started having Sunday potluck dinners at my house. Nothing fancy, just good food and better conversation. The first time I missed a family dinner to host my potluck, Mom called, confusion evident in her voice. "Are you sick, Maggie? David made your favorite lasagna." "Not sick," I said, "just having some friends over." "Friends?" She sounded genuinely surprised, which stung more than I expected. "You never mentioned having friends over before." "There's a lot I don't mention," I replied, trying to keep the edge from my voice. After we hung up, I posted in my group, "Who brings the best dish to a potluck? Wrong answers only." The notifications chimed all evening, each one a small reminder that I belonged somewhere, even if it wasn't where I'd originally hoped. 2 weeks later, Rachel dropped by unannounced. She stood awkwardly in my living room, taking in the evidence of my potluck the night before. Extra chairs still arranged in a circle, a forgotten scarf draped over the coat rack. "So," she said, "Mom says you've been busy with friends lately." I nodded, waiting. "I didn't realize you had so many friends here in town." Her tone suggested she thought I was making them up. 5 years is a long time to get to know people, Rachel. She picked up a photo I'd framed, our found family at the lake the previous weekend, arms around each other, laughing at something Marcus had said. "You look happy," she said, sounding puzzled. "I am happy," I replied, realizing as I said it that it was true. Rachel set the photo down carefully. "Michael's kids miss you at family dinner. They keep asking where Aunt Maggie is." The guilt trip was so familiar I almost laughed. "They're welcome to join us for game night this Friday. You all are." Her expression shifted. "Join what? What game night?" I told her about my group, the potlucks, game nights, our plans to volunteer together at the community garden. As I spoke, I saw something change in her eyes. Not jealousy exactly. Recognition, maybe. "So it's like your own family," she said slowly. "It's a group of people who choose to spend time together," I corrected her, "who make an effort to include everyone." "Is this because of the chat thing? Because we can add you?" "This isn't about the chat, Rachel. It's about years of feeling like an afterthought in my own family. The chat was just a symptom. She was quiet for a moment. I didn't realize you felt that way. You never asked. Word spread quickly through the family grapevine. Mom called to ask pointed questions about my new friends. Dad texted to make sure I was staying safe with these strangers. Michael sent me a meme with no context, his first direct communication in weeks. Then David showed up one Sunday evening just as our potluck was winding down. He stood awkwardly on my porch as my friends gathered their dishes and leftover food. "Can I come in?" he asked after they'd gone. I poured us both some coffee and waited while he gathered his thoughts. "So," he finally said, "I messed up." Of all the things I expected from my proud older brother, an admission of fault wasn't on the list. "We all did," he continued. "We got comfortable with you being the outsider. It was easier than adjusting, than making space." He stared into his mug. "I saw those photos Rachel showed us, of your group. You all looked like you actually wanted to be together." "We do," I said simply. "I remember when our family was like that," David said. "Before we started going through the motions. Before Sunday dinner became an obligation instead of a joy." "It doesn't have to be that way," I told him. "I know. That's why I'm here." He looked up at me. "To ask if I can join your group sometime, not to take over or anything, just to be part of something that matters again." I studied my brother's face, seeing past the familiar features to the vulnerability beneath. "Our next game night is Friday. Bring dessert." Over the following weeks, something remarkable happened. David came to game night and brought Mom. She hit it off immediately with Ruth, both of them comparing sourdough techniques. The next week, Michael and his kids joined us for a volunteer day at the community garden. His daughter and Marcus bonded over a shared love of fantasy novels. Gradually, my two worlds began to merge. Not completely. There were still found family events that remained just for us, and traditional family gatherings I attended out of love and obligation. But the boundaries became more permeable. The family group chat still existed, but it languished as more communication happened face-to-face during our merged gatherings. I never did join it. Instead, I created a new chat that included everyone, blood family and chosen family alike. We called it the whole bunch. Last month, we had a huge cookout in my backyard. My brother David was manning the grill alongside Javier. Mom and Ruth were deep in conversation about canning tomatoes. My niece was teaching Elena's daughter how to make friendship bracelets. Dad was telling his corny jokes to an appreciative audience of Marcus and Sam. I stood on the edge of the gathering, taking it all in, when Rachel approached with 2 glasses of lemonade. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked, handing me one. "Just thinking about belonging," I said. "How it's something you have to create for yourself sometimes." Rachel nodded, watching her husband laugh at something Taryn said. "I was jealous, you know. When I saw what you'd built here, it seemed more real than what we had." "It was different," I acknowledged. "Not better or worse, just built on choice rather than obligation." "I'm glad you didn't wait for us to include you," Rachel said softly. "I'm glad you made your own circle and then made it big enough for us to join." My phone buzzed in my pocket, a notification from the whole bunch chat. Someone had shared a photo taken moments ago of all of us in the backyard, the late afternoon sun making everything golden. The caption read, "Found and blood family, lucky to have both." I looked up from my phone to the real scene before me, the people I was born to and the people I'd chosen, no longer in separate orbits, but woven together into something new and stronger. Being excluded from that original family chat had hurt deeply, but that exclusion had pushed me to create something I wouldn't have otherwise, a community based on intention rather than circumstance. And in doing so, I'd not only found my place, but had somehow helped my family find theirs again, too. Sometimes the spaces we're not allowed to enter lead us to build doorways of our own. And those new doorways, it turns out, can be wide enough for everyone to walk through, even the ones who closed the first door on us.